Oregon Democrats want to shift a vote on Governor Tina Kotek's massive transportation bill from the November ballot up to the May primary. The measure would ask voters about proposed increases to gas taxes, payroll taxes, and vehicle fees after a conservative campaign gathered enough signatures to force a statewide vote. Fox 12's Leslie Dominique has more on why Democrats want the change and why Republicans are pushing back.
And the transportation saga in Salem continues. Democratic leadership announcing Wednesday they'll be pursuing legislation to move the vote on a referendum on House Bill 3991 from November's general election to the May 19th primary. In a joint statement, House Speaker Julie Fahey and Senate President Bob Wagner said in part the change would allow voters to weigh in on the measure as soon as possible, and that once the outcome of the election is known, it would clarify what level of transportation funding can be expected over the next 2 years. The referendum was set in motion after Republican-led group No Tax Oregon turned in more than 250,000 signatures to the Secretary of State's office, enough to put Governor Kotek's transportation package on hold and to send the issue to voters. The referendum paused increases to the gas tax, vehicle registration, and title fees, as well as a payroll tax, which were all part of Kotek's $4.3 billion transportation bill aimed at addressing ODOT's $242 million budget shortfall.
We are coming back together to figure this out.
Earlier this month, Governor Kotek called for the repeal of her own transportation package. But in their statement Wednesday, Democratic leadership said attorneys determined the legislature cannot repeal a measure that has been referred to voters, though it can set the date of the election.
This is unusual. We typically have statewide ballot measures in our November general elections. The case for the Republicans, they're making the case that big important decisions like this should go to the elections that have the highest turnouts.
Republican Senator Christine Drazen responded to the potential date change, saying in part, this is what desperation looks like.
The voters said we want to vote in November. Let the voters vote in November.
Echoing her sentiments is Nick Stark, executive director of the Oregon Freedom Coalition and former director of the No Tax Oregon campaign. He says moving the vote is an attempt to silence Oregonians.
It's purely political. It's purely intended so that way it's not on the ballot with some of these elected officials who took this bad vote in last September.
Leslie Dominique, Fox 12 Oregon.